Here we are on page 11, solutions to numbers 37 through 48. We are asked to solve this. Now here it's equal to 0. Now it is impossible to get the x squared and the x together. They are unlike terms, and so we break them up. And that's why we learned all this factoring. So we have x squared plus 7x plus 12 equals 0. Let's factor it. It is a trinomial, and we could break it up into x plus, 3 and x plus 4. That'll give us 0. We set this equal to 0, x plus 3 equals 0. That'll give us an answer. If we have 0 times x plus 4, blah, 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 whatever that is, will equal 0. Same thing, if we have x plus 4, equal to 0, then we have 0 times whatever x plus 3 is, and blah, that'll equal 0. So we get x equals a negative 3, and x equals a negative 4. We have two answers. Number 38. M squared minus 4m minus 12. Again, it's equal to 0, so we're going to factor it. M minus 6, m plus 2 equals 0. If we set this equal to 0 and solve for m, we'll get that m has to equal 6, or m can equal a negative 2. Number 39. X squared plus 3x minus 40. Let's see, this factors into things that multiply to 40, 5 and an 8, and they would add to 3 if we get the pluses and minuses, right? So we need x plus 8 so that we end up with a positive when we add them in there, and x minus 5, so we get x equals a negative 8 and x equals a positive 5. Number 40. X squared minus 9x plus 18. See, 9 and 2 won't add to 9, but 6 and 3 will. So we're going to break that up into x minus 6 and x minus 3 equals 0. Make this guy 0, and we get x equals 6, x equals 3. Now, interesting thing about this is you can actually go and check them. Just for fun, let's stick in 6. This is 36. That's 6 squared minus 54 plus 18. Go ahead, 36 minus 54 plus 18. Punch it in your calculator and it equals 0. Stick in 3 and we get 3 squared, which is 9 minus 27 plus 18. See if it equals 0, and indeed it does. Number 41. A squared minus 23a minus 24. That looks like a minus 24. A plus 1 equal to 0, and we get, so a will equal 24, or a could equal a negative 1. You may be wondering at this time, hey, they're always coming out exactly opposite. And so far that's the case, because when you take this guy and set it equal to 0, you subtract that over to the other side, you get the exact opposite. 42. X squared minus 10x minus 24. Well, 6 and 4 will add to 10, but they would have to both be negative to do that, and that won't times there. It looks like 2 and 12 will, if one's positive, one's negative. So x minus 12, x plus 2. That gives us x equals 12, and x equals a negative 2. Number 43. 12y cubed minus 22y squared minus 14y. It's equal to 0. That's great. So we now have to take out anything we can. Let me see. Looks like we could take out a 2 and a y out of everything. So we get 2y. We're left with 6y squared minus 11y minus 7 equals 0. Now we got to factor this guy. Ooh, leading coefficient is a 6. That means we're going to have to do a little bit of multiplication here. 6 times negative 7, that's negative 42. You could have 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3 and 14. Oh, that's our thing that'll add to negative 11, but let's keep going. 6 and 7. So negative 14 and a positive 3. So this guy came from a plus 3y and a minus 14y. We're going to ignore this and that for just a while we factor this. So we now have 4 terms, so we group 3y and that is 2y plus 1. And here we can take out a negative 7 and end up with a 2y plus 1. And look, the 2y plus 1 is in both places, so we can 2y plus 1, take that guy out, and we're left with the 3y minus 7. As a reminder, that was called grouping, factoring by grouping. And that equals 0. We now have, if I look here, we now have 3 factors. We set this equal to 0 when 2y equals 0, divide by 2, and we get y equals 0, gives us an answer. And certainly, if y is 0 and we multiply all these things together, we'll get 0. Then this one, we have 2y plus 1 equals 0. Subtract 1, we get 2y equals a negative 1, and y equals a negative 1 half. So here's one answer. Here's another answer. Now notice on this one, we don't get exactly the opposite. We don't get negative 1. We had to get negative 1 half so that this entire factor would end up being 0. Now on the next one, we have 3y minus 7 equals 0. And again, we're saying this guy could equal 0, give us an answer. This one could equal 0, it'll give us an answer. And this one could equal 0, and it will give us an answer. 3y equals 7 when we add 7 to both sides, and then divide, and we get y equals 7 thirds. So there is our answer. 44. 9x squared minus 25. That looks like a perfect square, and that looks like a perfect square. 3x plus 5, 3x minus 5 equals 0. That means we could get, if we set this equal to 0, subtract 5, divide by 3, and we get x equals a negative 5 thirds. And here, add 5, divide by 3, and we get x could equal a positive 5 thirds. Let's do number 45. Ooh, this one looks not so nice. We've got a 3x squared minus 22x plus 7 equals 0. To factor, this is a trinomial where the leading coefficient is not 1. So we're going to take 3 times 7 over here, and that's the number 21. 1 and 21, or 3 and 7. That's all we have. Looks like this guy right here is going to be the one that will add that up. So this came from a negative x and a negative 21x. Put the other guys there, 3x squared. So this minus 22x came from negative x and negative 21x. And then we now have 4 terms, so we can group, pull out an x, 3x minus 1, and here we can pull out a 7. Ooh, we want to pull out that same sign, so we want to pull out a negative 7. We want to pull out this negative sign right here. That will allow it so that this 3x will match up with that 3x. And look, we do get it. 3x minus 1 gets pulled out all the way from x minus 7. So now this one's kind of nice. We get x equals 7, because when you set this equal to 0, you just add 7 over and you get it. And this one's going to be x equals, add 1, divide by 3, 1/3. Number 46. 8w squared minus 10w minus 3 equals 0. Ooh, with this one, we have a leading coefficient that's not 1. We can't take anything common out, so we're going to have to times the 8 and the 3 together. Let me write it down here. 8w squared minus 10w minus 3 equals 0. 8 times negative 3 is a negative 24. 1 and 24. 2 and 12 would do it. 3 and 8 would do it. And 4 and 6 would do it. And we're looking for opposite signs that will add to a negative 10. And so here we have a negative 12 and a positive 2 that'll do the trick. Here's a temptation to go with a negative 4 and a negative 6. However, they don't times to negative 24. That's why this is the group that has to work. So let's split up that middle to a plus 2w and a minus 12w. So you get 8w squared plus 2w minus 12w minus 3. And then it will be equal to 0. We now have 4 terms, so we group. We get 2w 4w plus 1, is that right? And then over here we can take out the minus sign and a 3, and we're left with 4w plus 1. We can take out that 4w plus 1, we'll get 2w minus 3. That's equal to 0. And so we set this guy equal to 0, and we get w equals a negative 1/4. And this guy equal to 0 will give us a w equals, let me see, you'll have to add 3, divide by 2, 3/2. Number 47. We have x squared equals 9. One of the things that we've been doing with all of these problems is that we've got to get it equal to 0. We need to write it as x squared minus 9 equals 0. That way we can factor this and have x plus 3, x minus 3 equals 0, which gives us two answers. X equals a negative 3 and x equals a positive 3. And number 48. Ooh, 100x squared plus 80x plus 16. Is there anything common that we can pull out of there? Maybe a 4? 25x squared plus 20x plus 4. Okay. I'm seeing a couple of special squares right here and right there. That means we could have 5x plus 2 squared. Does that make sure and work? Make sure we got that in the middle. That's a 10x and a 10x. Yep, that's 2 times 2 times 5. So this is a perfect square. If we set each of them equal to 0, 4 equal to 0 doesn't make any sense, doesn't give us any solution. This gives us x equals, subtract 2, divide by 5, a negative 2/5, and that one does as well. So that guy happens twice, but it's the same number. So there's the answer, number 48.